Welcome to Downshift, everyone. My name is Paulo.
And my name is Matt, and we have spent the week with Nissan's best-selling Rogue. This one specifically is the Rock Creek, but I'm going to walk you through the best and the rest of the Rogue lineup as it pertains to the entire lineup.
Yes, then we're going to get behind the wheel, talk about some of its standouts for the week and how it competes with its competitors, very high level.
And then make sure you stay tuned and subscribe to the channel because we will have a head-to-head with this against my CR-V and this against my RAV4. So let's get into the Rogue.
Boom.
Boom. Fourth time is the charm. Why don't more people say that? Now, the first and really only place that I can objectively ding the car is something that's not even necessarily going on here, but what isn't going on here. It's the fact that you can't get a hybrid and you can't get a plug-in hybrid. Now, I don't totally expect a plug-in hybrid, but some of the leaders in the segment have brought one. Toyota's got one in their RAV4 Prime, Hyundai's got one in their Tucson plug-in, Kia's got the Sportage plug-in, but I do expect a hybrid in this class. In 24, 25 here, everyone kind of feels like they need to be bringing a hybrid. Even Mazda's got a hybrid now in their CX-50. Subaru's got one in their Forester now. So to have a hybrid in this class is what you need to be competitive. That said, the powertrain that we have under the hood here is a 1.5 liter turbocharged 3-cylinder. It's Nissan's VC turbo or variable compression turbo. It makes 201 horsepower, which is pretty good, especially for non-hybrid power. 225 pound-feet. That's also very good for non-hybrid power. And it's good for like 31 mpg. Now here with the Rock Creek and the all-terrain tires, that brings it down to about 29 according to the EPA. But, so it's good on power. And on our Lakeshore Loop fuel economy test, we came back with 36.1 mpg, which is almost exactly what we got in my wife's CR-V hybrid. Now granted, it was like 45 degrees when we did our test in the Rogue, and it was like 20 degrees when we did it in the CR-V hybrid, and cold is a big impact on hybrid. But anyway, the point that I'm making is it doesn't have a hybrid, it doesn't have a plug-in hybrid, but if you're not gonna have it, the engine here, it's not so bad. The 3-cylinder has some charisma, it makes good power, it makes good fuel economy, so could be worse. But that's really it. That's kind of all that we can objectively and on paper ding the Rogue for. The rest of it is pretty competitive with the rest of the segment on paper. Now, in terms of the nitpicks, the finer details, this isn't gonna have the same reputation for reliability that you see from like a Honda or a Toyota or even maybe a Mazda. And it's also not quite on the same build quality or material tier as something like a Mazda. They generally play a little bit more upmarket, but even like a Honda might have a little bit tighter or more quality build. But again, these are tiny little nitpicks and they're maybe marginal. Your experience is gonna vary. So the point is, it's pretty solid, this Rogue, at least from what I've experienced this week. So let's talk about all the great things about it. Yes, the driving experience. That 1.5 turbocharged 3-cylinder, it roars and builds power. Over 200 horsepower, I should say. It's just kind of unique. There's a little unique character to the sound and the vibration that comes in that you just don't get because everything else is a 4-cylinder. So it's kind of nice to have a 3-cylinder. It almost sounds a little V6-y minus obviously the other bank, but it's just kind of fun. There's a little bit of like levity to the powertrain here. This VC turbo or variable compression turbo is very peaky the way that turbo comes in. So when you put your foot down, it takes a second, and then you ride a wave of torque. It's kind of nice. You've got an Xtronic CVT here, which I guess kind of makes sense. It's gonna make sense for this application. It synthesizes shifts to kind of feel a little bit more conventional, and you've got shift paddles here on the wheel. Now this car can either be had as front-wheel drive standard or with all-wheel drive. Now all-wheel drive is gonna be standard for your Rock Creek that we have here. But overall, there's not a lot of tire noise coming in from these all-terrain tires on the Rock Creek. The ride is pretty dang good. The seats are pretty dang good. The steering is kind of not my favorite, but it's fine for the class. It's really light and easy. It just doesn't have really any feel. It's kind of Honda Odyssey in that way. That's going to be a niche reference for those of you that get that. But the other thing that I'll notice about this powertrain is it just coasts for days. I take my foot off power and it'll just coast. Like there's no rolling resistance feeling whatsoever. Front visibility is very good. It's impacted a little bit by your rear view mirror, but overall the driving experience is pleasant. There's really not a lot to complain about. Rah-rah nature that you get from the off-road creek here, or off-road creek. And I do like the Rock Creek, geez, why can't I say that? And when it comes to styling, I generally think the Rogue is more on the Kia over-styled end of the spectrum rather than the Mazda kind of classic, clean, and contemporary look. But it's not to say that it looks unattractive. I still generally think it looks pretty good, and I like the aggressive look that you get here with the Rock Creek. We'll start with the paint because this Rogue is draped in Baja Storm, which goes really well with the Rock Creek. It's $425 and I think it's worth it. Of course, the new Rogues from last year got a new revised V-Motion grille and you've got some full LED headlights up front. But the Rock Creek brings it a step further with a more unique grille with some white accents and otherwise black, and then you get some red or orange accents down below. Your profile as a shape is pretty unchanged from the past few years, but the Rock Creek is again bringing unique 17-inch wheels and some more aggressive all-terrain tires. There's no exposed exhausts out back and it's LED taillights for the most part, but overall it looks like a Rogue and it's fairly handsome. So if you were going to choose, would you rather have a Rogue Rock Creek or a CX-50 Meridian? And I know we mentioned it a little bit with styling, but I do like the Rock Creek stuff here. It's basically an $800 add-on package and it gets you unique wheels, but also all-terrain tires. And you get 360 cameras with trail cams to show you your side tolerances, which is really helpful off-roading. And speaking of off-roading, there is an off-road mode which will automatically bring up those trail cams. Again, super convenient. You also get a hill descent mode, and outside you get your tubular roof rack up top. Yes, they call it tubular, and it is. And you get a unique front fascia and grille that we talked about with the styling section, and you've got Rock Creek badging everywhere. And inside, your seats are heated with some contrast stitching and some logoing, and the heating works real fast and it works real well. And the Rock Creek also gets you a 12-volt outlet in the trunk, and overall, I think it's a nice little addition, especially if you're going to end up in sloppy gravel like this. And when it comes to your trunk and cargo area, it's pretty good. Small little nitpick, I would like the release to be up here. Again, I don't know why cars do this, but they have their own separate trunk release, but it is powered and you get your close and lock feature on the left-hand side of the gate. It's also gonna be powered on your Platinum trim. But here, the space itself, you're looking at 36 cubic feet of space. That's only 1.5 cubic feet shy of the segment leader. So this is a huge space, and the floor kind of levels off to different levels if you wanna maybe camp or sleep in the back of your truck. And you have a spare tire underneath the floor here. That's kind of the benefit of not having a hybrid and taking up some battery space in the back of the car. You can also fold the seats from the seat backs. That's kind of okay versus, an actual pull on the side of the trunk door. That's okay, it's kind of tied with the rest of the segment. The CRVs, the RAV4s, they also have the pulls there. But when you fold the seats down, then you're looking at 74 cubic feet of space, which again is huge and just 1 cubic foot of space shy of the segment benchmark, or the leader that you could say. So huge, very practical trunk here in the Rogue. And in terms of towing, you're gonna max out at 1,500 pounds, I think regardless of any Rogue trim, which is about on par for the rest of the segment. If you wanna tow a little bit more, you might have to look at the Subaru route. But here, 1,500 pounds, that's competitive for sure. And then as we talk about the technology here on the Rogue, now some of this stuff you're gonna be able to get in the Platinum. So we'll talk about all the things that you can get if you were to spend the appropriate amount of money on a Rogue. Now you can get a head-up display. You're not gonna have it here on our test car. You can also get a fully digital instrument cluster, which we have a semi-digital one, kind of a conventional TFT screen in the center, but it's big enough and it gives me plenty of information, so it's good enough. But if you want a full digital one, you can get that in the Platinum. We also have an 8-inch center screen here, but if you go up to the Platinum, you can get a 12.3-inch screen. That'll get you wireless Apple CarPlay, Android Auto. The software is going to be Android-based and it's going to work pretty well. You'll have Google built in, and the thing that I've noticed about our operating system here, I don't remember if it's like this in the Platinum that I tested last year, but when you click on the arrows to navigate through the system, I don't know if you can hear this in the mic. But it sounds like the clicking sound that you would get on the first PC. Like a Windows 95 click sound is what it sounds like when you click on this, which you can take a couple ways, but I'm choosing to look at it in kind of a fun way. But here, of course, you do get a wireless charger, which is nice. You get 360 cameras on your Rock Creek and your Platinum, and you've got this off-road mode button, which does pull them up, and you get side view tolerances for off-roading. It's pretty nice. Your rear view mirror, you're not going to get a digital one like you might in a Hyundai or even a Toyota, but your safety suite is also pretty good. It's competitive. It's not the best in the world, but it's good enough to be helpful on long stretches of highway, and honestly, that's what I'm looking for. I don't need an eyeball reader. I just want something that's going to help keep me in my lane, some adaptive cruise, and this does that. So from a tech perspective, you can get pretty much everything you want in the Rogue. depending on how much money you spend. And when it comes to the rear seats, there's a lot to love as well. Now, from the jump, it's a great size. I'm 6'1", I've got several inches of knee room in front of me, I've got several inches of headroom above me. I'm not gonna hit my nub, which is fantastic. But the seats are also fairly high. There's a little bit of that stadium seating thing going on here. So if you get car sick or motion sick, these might be some nice rear seats to help you see a little bit more out the front and sides of the car. But we do have some cloth and synthetic leather with the orange stitching. There's no Rock Creek detailing that you see from the front seats. We also only have a single map pocket and some vents and some chargers. But if you do go up to the platinum trim, you'll get a standard panoramic sunroof and a third climate zone. And then in terms of the cabin experience overall, it's perfectly pleasant. Is it as wow in your face as something like a Mazda? No. Is it got as nice of leathers as you would see in a Honda? No. But it's still good. And they've done smart, they've made smart choices. Like the center console here is a brushed plastic rather than a flat gloss plastic like you'd have on the passenger side of the dash. So it's going to resist scratches and smudges a little bit more and not look so dirty over time. But you do have physical climate controls, buttons for things, which is really nice. You can get a bigger screen if you want, but even still, as it sits, everything is just fine. It's good enough. It doesn't feel like luxury tier, but it's not luxury tier money. So I think it's definitely appropriate for what you're getting here. And honestly, nothing's squeaked, nothing's rattled. It's been fine. And as we talk money, I do think there's a value to be had here with the Rogue. Now, Rogues start at $28,420, and around the mid-28s is where a lot of the competitors start as well for the non-hybrid. So again, on par for the segment. But the nice thing is, if you don't want to shell out the extra money for a hybrid, this engine underneath here is actually pretty efficient, as we've seen from our testing. So if fuel economy is important to you, you don't want to shell out the extra money, this might not be a bad thing to look at. But just a couple odds and ends. The A-pillar/window nipples are still here, and there's Rock Creek signature badging everywhere, in the grille, around the side, and in the wheel spoke itself. Hope you can see that. Of course, on your front door next to your bigger Rock Creek badge, and all the way up here on your tubular, yes, tubular roof rack, even around back on the back tailgate. And as you open up the trunk, it's also on your trunk liner. Now this is an added extra, but still. And finally, of course, on the back of your front seats. But with all these things covered, let's grab Paulo and go for a bit of a drive. Hey guys, real quick, Matt here. Just wanted to say, I hope you've been enjoying the video. If you have, would really appreciate you hitting that subscribe button. I know it doesn't seem like a big deal, but it does go a long way in helping us get access to cars sooner and get access to manufacturer engineers so we can get more information on the cars and get you more information so you can make better decisions. So would really appreciate you hitting that subscribe, like, comment, the whole YouTube thing. But with that, let's get back to the video.
Oh, listen to that
VC
CVT
turbo
humming.
Wait.
What?
It's clearly showing it's like synthesizing shifts, but it doesn't like feel.
No, wait.
Different.
I was messing around. Ready?
Yeah, but like when it was upshifting just now.
No, I
do feel engine braking.
On upshifting, it feels like it's just one gear.
It feels like the gear is going.
Yeah.
Yeah, kind of like that. Anyway, talk to me about your experience with the Nissan Rogue.
Yeah, it's well, it is Nissan's best-selling vehicle.
So we're going straight into sales.
Well, I just thought I'd mention it, and then I also thought I'd mention. Take a guess what Nissan's least sold vehicle is.
Why don't you tell us?
I'll give you a hint.
It's one letter.
It's one letter, and it's a Z. Okay, but
letter.
we digress. Yeah, it's an interesting car. I'll say that, and especially the trim that we have here.
Yeah, the Rock Creek is an interesting. I don't know that it's someone that I would get. It's very styled, very stylized. Oh no, now you're in manual.
Yeah, and I thought you would just. Okay, there we go.
Good?
It wasn't like that. Yeah. No, I mean, I feel like it's really a pseudo off-roader. They really just did exterior modifications. You have all-terrain tires.
But you have hill descent.
Okay, you have hill descent. You have some nice 360 cameras. The camera quality is actually pretty good.
They're all right, yeah.
I would say I like that the suspension is pretty cushy. I don't really like the steering feel. It's extremely light. Like, it's kind of sharp. And there's a lot of body roll though, but I don't like the way it feels. It just is way too light for my personal liking.
It's incredibly light.
I think the seats are very comfortable, but I don't think that they have enough articulation that you can do with them.
There's zero gravity seats, yes?
There's zero gravity seats, which
means something.
Which means something, but it seems kind of gimmicky.
This is my first time sitting in the passenger side, and yeah, I'm sitting like a full 4 inches higher than you, it feels like. Or maybe 3, I don't know, but like a significant margin, and this is the lowest that the seat will go.
I just think you have a big torso, but I like to move the front of my seats up where my
like
hamstrings
the
are.
thigh support.
Yeah, the thigh support in the front, so I'm kind of bucketing myself in the seat, and you can't really do that in here, so
it's limited.
Again, the material is nice, but I think they just limit you on how much you can actually move the seat, which is a bit frustrating. I like the interior in here, the experience. Like it does seem, I'd say, a bit more upscaled than like one of the competitors, like a RAV4, for example. I think I like the interior experience here. It
feels much more modern than a RAV4.
Yeah.
Obviously, the RAV4 is like on the eve of a new generation, so that'll get addressed. But yeah, this feels better.
So yeah, I mean, you know, I think this and its competitors, they're all pretty similar. There's a few features that I think distinguish themselves, and we're obviously going to do a few head-to-heads. We're going to compare this against the CR-V and the RAV4, so check those out if you want a true head-to-head comparison. But yeah, I mean, I think just to summarize it, like, I don't know how much trust I have in the reliability and longevity of this powertrain combination.
Yeah.
And that is probably my biggest concern and issue with the Rogue.
Yeah, I mean, Japanese cars in this class have a pretty strong reputation of reliability. The Mazdas, the Hondas, the Toyotas, generally speaking, they're pretty reliable, even the hybrids. This doesn't necessarily carry that same reputation. My wife has a friend that we had brunch with her like over the Christmas break this past winter, and like they had bought a Rogue, and we won't get into why they bought the Rogue. I had told them not to buy the Rogue, and then they bought the Rogue.
Don't you love when that happens?
And then, you know, they ended up stranded on the side of the highway at some point.
Powertrain issues?
Yeah, exactly. So there's reliability concerns built in here, and I think while generally speaking on Downshift here, we have to address the car as we experience it with our week, and it's difficult to talk about reliability, but this is pretty well documented through forums and things that you can read online, and just like personal anecdotes from people within our lives. So like if, for whatever reason, if reliability is not important to you, this is pretty solid. The engine is pretty efficient, especially for not having a
It actually is
hybrid.
Surprisingly efficient.
Really efficient. We did our Lakeshore Loop fuel economy test, and it got nearly the same fuel economy as my CR-V hybrid. Now granted, it was 25 degrees warmer and above freezing when I did this one. But, and then as we continued to drive it around the city, then it came back down to like 29.
But that is to say that we've experienced better MPG than the non-hybrid RAV4 and CR-Vs.
For sure. This is definitely going to be more efficient and more powerful and more punchy than the non-hybrid versions of pretty much anything else in the class. So there's charm to the VC turbo. It's 3 cylinders. It's got a unique sound and like character to it.
And I will say they have started to address specifically the CVT issues by going to more of a mechanical versus like a belt. So they are trying to address it, but I still think the engine itself has some concerns as well.
To me, my biggest thing with this car is, you know, they took a gamble on the VC turbo thing years ago, and obviously they dumped a bunch of money and investment into that, and like they just have to now backpedal and go back to hybrid and, you know, more conventional powertrains, because that's clearly what the market is showing that they want at this stage. So Nissan's kind of in a pinch, and I think if they can bring a hybrid Rogue to market that's reliable, there'd be no reason that anyone would not get it. I wouldn't have really anything negative to say about this car if they had like stuck a Toyota RAV4 hybrid engine in it like Mazda did with their CX-50. There'd be nothing negative to say about this car. So thanks to Nissan for letting us have a go.
Thank you guys for watching.
Thank you to you. Make sure that you stick around, subscribe to the channel to check out our head-to-head versus the CR-V and the RAV4, and we'll see you in the next one.